Welcome to Behind Closed Books, the podcast where business owners and experts reveal the financial decisions that shape their success. Each episode brings you unscripted stories of turning points, hard calls, and the numbers that changed everything to pivot, recover, and grow. If you're building a business and ready to think differently about profit, pressure, and progress, behind every smart decision is a story worth telling. This is the show. Here is your host, Craig Sheets.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the initial episode of Behind Closed Books. I'm the host, Craig Sheets. I'm here with Nick. Usually I'm the one asking questions, but today I'm going to have Nick asking me questions on a little table turn, and I thought I'd have him start. So Nick, go ahead.
Thank you, Craig. I always love to be asking the questions that are important, as long as they're important. So I'm here to get your podcast out there in terms of what it's about and how people can benefit from it. With that, let's get started with telling us what your podcast is called and what it's about.
Podcast is called Behind Closed Books. And the reason I chose the name Behind Closed Books is the stories don't just end at the end of the month. They're about all the lessons that are learned throughout the life cycle of a business. There's going to be obstacles businesses have overcome. There's going to be lessons in successes, but also in the numbers themselves. People can learn some of the trends that are out there as far as the financial activity they've been through. They can see a kind of a bigger, broader scope with what businesses have been through in the past, not just these are debits and credits, but there's a story behind every number. So I want people to learn and get some education out of some stories and successes and really overturn some good information from my guests in the future.
Mm-hmm. You said something that frankly, I repeat to everyone in my team regularly. I say, numbers are the way for us to understand what's going on in the business. And numbers, in fact, tell the story of what is going right and what's going wrong. Unfortunately, in our business community, not too many people know how to interpret the numbers. So it sounds to me like with your podcast, you are going to be helping people understand what the numbers are telling them.
Yeah, there's going to be not only just the trends, because the numbers themselves are just in a place. There are debits if they're expenses or credits if they're revenue. It doesn't really tell a story. But when you can see a history of expenses on the rise due to cost of labor or revenue decreasing due to downturn in the economy, those are telling a story. But beyond that, we can also see why is that happening and maybe kind of get behind the story to say, why is your revenue reducing or why is the cost of labor increasing? Are you employing more specialized labor? Is it just the part of the industry right now where the cost of employment is going up? You want to get behind the numbers to say what are causing these trends and then help them go through the bottom line, but even maybe go through a story of what's happening with their business and understand what they've been doing right or wrong.
Yeah, I'm always into numbers and also financial performance of a company. Since I am the one in charge of my company, always I have to understand what's going on. But I go back to many years ago. I remember I knew nothing about accounting. I knew nothing about finance, but I was put in charge of running this company, and I was therefore responsible for producing the financials. So what happened was, at the end of the year, we were putting the financial statements together for the tax return. And there were, I don't know, something like 100 plus chart of accounts,
Right.
the ledger codes.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I sat down with our accountant and we spent about 4 hours working on stuff, and we knocked out about, I think, 8 of those codes.
Wow. Okay.
And these were codes related to the balance sheet items.
Okay.
And the balance sheet itself had about 35 or so codes.
Right.
So I said to him, his name was David, I said, David, look, we did a good job. I said 8 codes we knocked out in 4 hours. So there's 30 something altogether. So that means we have another, say, 12 hours to go, and then we'll be done.
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, "You schmuck." He said, "Just one of those codes may take us days to
Right.
reconcile." So he said, so here, this is not about codes or numbers. He said, at the end of the day, the real job for me starts after we audited everything, because then I have to be able to tell the story
Right.
based on those numbers. He said, numbers just help me understand what you've done. And then I have to put it in the right format to report that this is what the company has done. I always remember that to this day. And numbers at the end of the day tell the story. And what I'm getting from you is you're going to tell many stories on your podcast, right?
That's what I'm going to try and do, and tell the stories. Like you said, when you're going through the numbers, a lot of times accountants or maybe bookkeepers, we call it heads down display, which basically you put a set of headphones on, you put some music on, whatever it is, and you just do a heads down. Heads down accounting is when you're literally in that mode you were just talking about. You're coding, you're reconciling, you're in the numbers, but you're so deep in those numbers that you're swimming through and you can't see the big picture. As they say, you can't see the forest through the trees. I think that's how they say it. And what I want to try and do is pull back a bit and talk to business owners to say, what are some of the ways in which you've used these trends, or use the numbers, I should say, to create trends? And what have you learned along the way that's helped you? Maybe you saw a trending of numbers and you realize, boy, that's why I'm not doing so right now. I'm not doing a good job managing employment. I'm not doing a good job managing rent. The expenses, funny enough, the revenue handles itself. You got to work on that with the marketing team, the marketing department. You want to get the numbers right from a revenue point of view. But when it comes down to the expenses, a lot of times business owners look to accountants to say, help me with my expenses. Why is my rent too high? Or show me the trends of what's too high. What is the industry standard for rent percentage? Why am I paying 60% rent of revenue? That's too high. And we as the accountants can see that. So if we can talk to some business owners, maybe they don't even know what trends they should be looking for, and we can have those conversations. Or if they do know the trends, we can educate other business owners as to what we can start looking for.
Yeah. There's another thing here, Craig, and that is decision making, right? Business decisions are extremely important. And in order to make the right decision, you need information. You
Right.
need to be armed with the right kind of information that says, okay, you have to maybe you are taking an increasing share of a reducing market. Your
Right.
sales may be going up, but they may be going up because you are having to discount heavily because the competition has gone too far. And so maybe a key decision is, wait a minute, month over month, our margins are shrinking. We got to be out of this business. Introduce it. So these are significant decisions to make, but you need the financial data. And that's where the numbers come in to tell the story, right?
They do. And they come in from obviously our record keeping from the accounting side. I really wear two hats. So when I work with clients, I'm both the bookkeeper, but more importantly, I'm not saying that the numbers need to be in the right place and they have to rest where they need to go. But the tax side of things, once the books are in place, I almost view the second step, audit the numbers, make sure they're good. We look over everything. We call them bank reconciliations. Once the reconciliations are done, we know the numbers match because they're all matched up to the actual bank statements and the numbers balance. But when you come to the tax return, we can now look at the whole global financials to say, boy, there's your revenue trending. We do a year over year analysis to say, here's your numbers last year, here's your numbers this year. And we do another expense analysis to show you, here's your net income from last year. And if they're not where they want to be, let's go into the weeds now. Let's dive into the expenses to say, which ones aren't trending right? Why are the certain expenses higher than the other? And that's what you have to do, is you got to use the numbers to your advantage. But when you're in the heads down mode, as I mentioned earlier, you are basically so deep in the numbers, you can't do that analysis. You got to jump out of the weeds a bit.
Yeah. Craig, tell us, who should tune into this show? What will they get out of it? What are the benefits of tuning in?
My passion has always been for small business owners. And over the years, when I first started back in the 90s as a CPA, small business owners, they were much smaller back then, but over time, small business owners now can even be in the millions. So
Yeah.
I've always had a passion for small business owners to not teach them, but educate them, I should say, as to what are the aspects of accounting where they can help you. A lot of people go, I can go to this accountant and he's only charging me this. Yeah, but does that accountant have conversations with you? Does he have conversations about your expense margins? Does he have conversations about ways to save money? Does he talk about estimated payments with you? It's not just what it costs. So I'm trying to teach small businesses and maybe even startup businesses too, would be another segment about the wider benefit of accounting and the accounting aspects to use the numbers to your advantage, not just say it's a means to the end. Sure, but let's use those numbers for a good reason. So I'd say small and maybe startup businesses would be a good group for people to listen to the podcast.
Okay. So small businesses, startup especially important. They have to get the finances right from the beginning. Give us an idea about the kind of guests you intend to have on the show.
I was thinking of, I haven't gone through this yet with my production team, but I was thinking of having the majority of my guests are going to be business owners, and they're going to be people sharing experiences from when they owned a business, or the business owners, when they went through their books. I was also thinking have another kind of a series based on the professionals that every small business owner should have in their toolbox, almost like a toolbox series where we need a lawyer. A lot of times these small businesses, and I'm just going to diverge real quick. Small business owners or new business owners don't even know they need an accountant until they're in trouble. And I don't want people to go into year 3 and find out they're in trouble. I want them to start from day 1 being fresh. So having professionals that you need in your toolbox, a payroll person, an investment advisor, obviously an accountant, a tax person, a investment advisor. There's been multiple different people you're going to need in your toolbox to get started. So I really want to make sure I interview those people to tell them why is it important you have those professionals on your side as needed, but also the segment for business owners themselves. I want those to be any kind of aspect of small business that needs to hear more about accounting, and don't wait until you're audited by the IRS. Don't wait until you're getting notices from the IRS. Get ahead of the curve and start on day 1. And that's the segment I want to work with is small business and startup businesses too. Unfortunately, a lot of times they don't even know they need an accountant until it's too late.
What's the percentage of small businesses that don't make it to year 2? It's
huge percentage.
Yeah. Okay, so I understand. So actually, I think that your approach of having small business owners as well as different providers that can speak from multiple perspectives.
Yes.
Because you have service-based businesses, you have inventory-based businesses, you have roofers going around doing, and they make a good living, but they're busy, but they're not really business people.
Right.
And then also you have retail store owners, grocery store owners, or online sellers. So these are all different types of businesses. Having them and on the show and giving their perspective, hearing their perspective will be great. And at the same time, you have the providers who work with them. They can speak from multiple perspectives. Yeah, it's great. So give us a sense of also some of the topics that you intend to cover.
Yeah, I was torn at first. Do I want to do the deep dive and all the newest regulations? And I thought, no, that doesn't make sense. That's more like a lecture hall. And I don't want it to be a lecture hall series. I don't want it to be, okay, we're going to talk about Regulation 263. I don't think that's the right focus of a podcast. What I want to do is talk more about what are the latest trends in how to do payroll services, maybe for people that are in a certain industry, or how to do trend analysis on your expenses. Look at your expenses and kind of work on a bumper guard system to say, these are the percentages we should see in our industry. Whether you're as you mentioned, there's different types of industries. If you're an inventory-based industry, you're going to have a higher rent because you have to have a facility, and your facility is going to cost a lot of money to rent. So your rent margins will be much higher Then let's say somebody that's a work from home business where they have all their employees are virtual, their rent shouldn't be that high. That's just a small example, but I want to do different segments on understanding what trends and what percentages your expenses should be just overall. But even deeper in the industry, people have a lot of good stories out there for business owners that maybe you haven't even thought of in the inventory space, or people in the service related space that can give you insight to say, today I'm going to tune in because I'm an inventory based company and I want to hear more about these ideas that businesses in the inventory business, I should say, sorry again, but business related space are working on versus the service related people. What's their expenses? It can be a totally different segment. And we dive into each of those and talk about trends and analysis.
Yeah. Look, when you dive into the small business space, there's no end of very interesting stories. I give you an example of real life scenario, which is also a practical approach to a very important subject, and that's raising money. Okay?
Right.
I don't know any small business person who does not want money.
Of course.
Because they generate much slower than they spend at the beginning, especially.
Right.
So I was having this conversation with this small business owner, and this is not a podcast. It's just we met at an event, and then he's telling me. So I said, "How did you go about funding your business?" And he said, "Oh, we used customer funding." So I said, "What do you mean, customer funding?"
Yeah, it's a
Said,
funny term.
so he said, "What we did was we had an idea for what we were looking to do, but we didn't have the money to really develop it. So we went to top 3 companies who would benefit from that solution the most.
Okay.
And we went to them and we gave them our prototype. We showed our prototype. We showed our ideas, our vision. And we asked them, would you be interested if we develop this?
Okay.
And they all said yes, of course, because
Right.
this is like the best thing that can happen. And then we asked them, okay, what if we gave you the priority and a significantly discounted rate on what we will end up pricing this?
Okay. Okay. I see.
How would you like to be the first one that uses this in your space that will give you competitive advantage? Plus, you're going to get it for much cheaper than what you would otherwise pay. 2 of them said, no, sorry, how do we know? We give you the money and you're not going to just take it and go to Tahiti and then 2 weeks later, sorry, no product.
I see it.
But one of them said, yeah, we would be interested. They started talking terms and we asked them to prepay for a year upfront.
Okay.
At a significant discount, plus going forward, a lifetime discount.
Wow. And that worked as a trend, or that worked as a trend. That worked as a way to fund the project up front,
Right.
upfront pricing on that. That's a really smart tool.
So now that's a practical conversation.
Right.
Okay? Anybody else can do this. And so these are the kinds of things that you can really bring up during the, it's not just 1 or 2 things. I give you another example. Banking, right? Banking is constantly changing.
Right.
These days, there is no shortage of online-only banks. Guess what? Some of those banks actually offer very friendly terms to small businesses.
Right.
So you can take a boring subject like banking, but turn it into a really useful conversation about some of the online banking practices that
Right.
are in your best interest and share some experiences with some of them.
And that's what I want to do. I want to open the door, again, open the book, so to say, but look behind whatever the topic is to say, banking. Is that really something I want to talk about? You know what? By the time I'm done with my podcast, you'll be surprised you did want to talk about banking. Or if you want to talk about inventory, maybe it doesn't relate to service people, but there's a big segment of the small business that has inventory. And all the different topics along the way, people are going to glean some insight that they may not otherwise have known or expected. And that is the benefit of having a podcast like this, bringing on guests from all walks of life, different industries. And it's an exciting way to share with my guests.
Yeah. Great. So I'm looking forward to this. I always love the small business conversations because usually they are in the trenches.
Oh
They
yeah.
are creating something out of nothing. And otherwise, anytime you go to the big boys, they have their distribution already established, they have plenty of cash. So there is really not much of a challenge. Of course, their problems are bigger problems, but the small business guy is great. So this podcast is going to be extremely useful. So, what I want to do now is I want to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
So, your company is called Crestville Accounting, right?
It is. That's correct. Yep.
And you are Craig Sheets. So, tell us who Craig Sheets is. Start with where you grew up, and then work your way up to how you ended up in accounting space.
Yeah, I have an interesting background. I grew up in a town in, some people call it Western New York. I call it upstate New York, in Rochester, New York, just outside of Buffalo. And we had a family business. I shouldn't say we, my parents had a family business. They owned an RV and boat dealership. So I grew up in the space of small business owners. I saw the struggles they went through as looking for financing at times and doing great in other times. And my father used to bring me in when I was younger, probably starting about maybe earlier than I should have, but 12 years old, and pay me my allowance money to go in to work with him. And if you don't know, dealerships have different departments, they call them. So there's a sales department, there's a parts department, a service department, then there's the detailing ones that clean the RVs, an accounting department, of course, the management department. And he said, you know what, be safe, do what you want to do, but explore around. This is like your introduction to the family business, and look around, be curious. And I'd watch my grandmothers used to clean the RV dealership, and I'd watch them cleaning, having fun with them and stuff, playing hide and seek. But the two things I remember from when I'm younger working there, from a marketing aspect first, they used to have what they call RV shows back then. And the RV shows they actually brought the campers into the mall. They'd physically open the doors. The mall would close at 10 o'clock. They'd open the mall to my dad. He'd set up all the RVs overnight. They'd leave one of the restaurants open, and we'd set up the RV show all excited. Then Saturday morning, my mom and dad and I, everybody else would go in. My mom was in charge of sales, and she said, I have a good idea. We used to have something called tent campers, which I'll explain what that is in a minute. But what we used to do is they bring it, I'll walk it back. What they used to say is 10 campers are great things for family. You can sleep a family of 4. It's so easy that even children can set it up. And they bring me out on stage at 12 years old. Everybody would cheering and laughing. I'd set up the tent camper and putting it up like I'm a pro. And I'm like all excited about that. So being in front of people, I like being in front of people. It never made me shy. So I remember that experience from marketing. And then the other thing I remember is I had every department available to me. But every time my dad would find me, I'd be in his office counting change from the vending machine, or I'd be in the accounting department putting POs and invoices in numerical order for the accountants. And my dad's like, why in God's name at 12 and 13 years old are you sitting in the accounting department putting purchase orders and payroll reports in order? It doesn't make any sense. It's not natural. I said, Dad, I love numbers, kind of laughed about it. And as I got older, I felt connected to numbers. I know it sounds silly, but I've always just had a panache for that. Went to school at a university called Niagara University, which is, as you might guess, in Niagara Falls. And I decided to major in, actually, funny story, I actually didn't even realize that tied back perfect. I had a dual major, and my friends were like, why are you majoring in these two things? I majored in both marketing and accounting. They're like, those might as well be like cats and dogs. They have nothing to do with each other. I said, sure they do. Small business owner one day, I need to market for myself. And then accounting, I love numbers. So my friends, whatever. So I got 2 degrees from Niagara. And then at the time afterwards, I got married. My ex-wife now, she had a choice to move. She said, I got a job offer within my company. We can move to Indianapolis, Indiana, or Orlando, Florida. And we're in Rochester. I'm thinking, why are you bringing this to me? We're going to Orlando. This is a no-brainer, right? So we go down to Orlando and then have a family. I have 2 children. My son is in college up in Michigan. He plays football. He's on a scholarship. Got to plug a shout out for him, for my son, CJ. Very proud of him. And then my daughter, Lindsay, she's up in school in the Charlotte area, a full ride for soccer. Give a shout out for her. And then some years later, I fell in love again. I found my current wife. She's from Wales. So I spend half my time living over in Wales, UK, and I work remotely. We've had a remote office now for the past 10 years. I work US hours. I work from basically noon on UK time till 11 o'clock at night, which puts me in the US hours. So my clients don't know any different whether I'm in the US or UK. I'm still working the 8-hour days. And I spend the other 6 months here in Orlando, and I don't really see clients face to face. It's all
Yeah.
Teams, Zoom. So it works out for me. So the background of where I've come from has brought me into where I'm at today. And now I feel privileged. We have a CPA firm of 6 people, and really proud of what we've done and accomplished. And we hope to grow more in the future.
Yeah. You've got such a journey. One thing that I'm curious about is really what your father was curious about. uh, Maybe a little bit deeper. What was your interest in the numbers? Because kids usually are not interested in numbers. They're
I know.
interested in toys. And where do you think your interest in numbers came from?
I talked to my mom. I didn't talk to my dad. I talked to my mom more. My mom would always say that my dad really dived into the numbers. He would really dig into the numbers. He didn't tell me these things, but I'm wondering if genetically, I know it sounds weird, but somehow through the family, that was ingrained in me without even knowing it. But beyond that, I don't know. I remember obviously playing with money when I was a kid, and the vending machine money, that's money, but that's not exactly numbers. But the accounting department and going through the POs and friends, what's a PO? I was like, what do you mean what's a PO? It's a purchase order. I'm like at 12 years old talking about purchase orders. So like, whatever. It just spoke to me. Numbers made sense. They where they need to be. You can't mess around them. They have an order. They have a sequence. There's a beauty to it in a way.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. My sister is in Jacksonville. She's a realtor. Actually, her and her husband are both realtors up in the Jacksonville area. They have 2 children. One's in college, and the other one is working already. So her kids are a little bit older by about 3 to 5 years older than my children.
One sister.
One sister. That's correct. Yep. She's
Is
5.
she also into numbers?
She's not. She was a school teacher. She hates numbers. Matter of fact, I do her taxes. She's like, don't even show me the numbers. I can't stand them. She's big into, but if I write her an email, that's supposed to say there, THERE, not there, THEIR. I'm like, yeah, she likes English.
So I'm still not clear where your interest in numbers came from. Was it so? One thing that I just heard you say that numbers make sense, they are in sequence, you can make sense of them. So in your home, was communication unclear or something like things going on so that numbers is where you found some kind of clarity? Or
That's interesting. I don't know. We obviously, my parents being as busy as they were, my mom worked in the business on the payroll side. So she'd work part-time there. She'd always be at work. And my dad full-time. You just don't see him often because he's obviously at work all day. He leaves in the morning, doesn't come back till late at night. Sometimes he's on meeting trips. He has to go around the country to do meetings. So he was very busy. So I think I was set on my own to find my own avenue and left my own devices in a way. But I don't know. That's a really interesting question to dive deeper to know, where did that love for money come? I know it drew me to it, but what drove me to that besides the elegance of it and the order, everything to me made sense. It may just have been something I could put in a box that made sense to me because I could control that number versus with everything else, with parents working and everything. That's my thing I could kind of to rely on.
so there was a TV show. Unfortunately, it was canceled because it was too deep, but it was a great show. Kiefer Sutherland. It's called Numbers.
I remember that show. Yeah, Numbers. It was a great show.
So he had a son. The son was autistic
Yes.
or something weird. It was a special kind of situation.
Yeah.
And the son could see the future events.
Oh,
The numbers would tell the story, and it's something bad is going to happen on the 6th of the ninth month at the corner of 51st Street and 3rd Avenue and blah. So then all those numbers would come to him, and then it would be. But the point is, the reason why the kid gravitated towards numbers was because he had, I think he had, yeah, he had speech impediment, couldn't
right.
talk. So I'm just thinking, in your case, growing up, is it because this had to have happened very young, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old? Was there something that pushed you towards numbers to see things more clearly?
I don't know. I was school English is, I always joke, ESL, we used to call it. English is a second language for people who are from other countries. They'd teach English in a more rudimentary way. And I'd say, I should be doing ESL instead of regular English. English never really came to me. I wasn't able to write novels of the stories and didn't want to read all the Shakespeare and all the different novels like that. So it really never gravitated towards that side from education. It just led me to, I don't even know what led me. I just like the
Oh,
numbers.
wait a minute. I just remembered something because when you and I were working, I heard you say that I don't do well with writing. I cannot write.
I can't.
So why is it that what do you think caused that distance from language?
I don't know. Maybe it's the fear of all the different uncertainties. Because when you think of the English language versus the numbers language, and I'll refer to numbers as a language, it is in itself. The rules for the English language kind of make sense, but there's so many different things you can do with the English language. There's no direct 1, 2, 3 like you would have a number. You can put them in different sequences, and it can be more eloquent. You can make it more factual. You can make it more scientific with them, but with numbers, they have a certain order they go in. And I think to me, it was just easier to gravitate towards that rather than uncertain
Yeah, I,
English.
I can see this because communication is the hardest thing. So really, ultimately, what I'm hearing is this comes down to communication. And
Yeah,
so would it be fair to say that you find it much easier to communicate through numbers than language?
I do. As a matter of fact, my office manager for Christmas this year bought me a mug, and I'm thinking back, I think it just says these 3 words: this calls for a spreadsheet. Literally just that. And I said, you know what? I speak to that. Let's do that. So whenever we have a conversation on the phone with a client, hey, when we're done, we'll do a summary. I'll send you a summary spreadsheet. I'll put it in numbers form for you.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody, was your dad also the same or similar, or where do you think that stickiness?
My mom told me a story when my dad first started his business. He was an employee there. I don't know if I said that. He started off as a mechanic at the dealership where he owned it. And at the time, he said, I wanted to do something better for myself. And he went to the owner of the dealership and said, listen, I think I really want to buy this out. I know I'm a mechanic. I can do it. The guy had faith in him. He wanted to retire. Gave it to my dad. And my dad said he sat down for the first 6 months. And he said, I went through every number. I went through every deal. I went through every kind of set of finances to make sure I understand how the numbers worked. Because when you work in an RV or a boat or a car dealership, you know the numbers are like, oh, this is at sticker and this is at that. And they kind of, not saying they play with the numbers, but he said, I want to start a company. It's like, there's no messing with the numbers. This is the number. It's the best number you're going to get. I forgot the terminology he used, but he said, I use my numbers to make me different than other dealerships. There's the number on the RV. It's going to be better than anywhere you find it anywhere else. But he's gone through to run the numbers to determine what's the best marketing tool. And that was one thing he gravitated towards. So it could be coming from his side, numbers.
So your dad was also more comfortable with numbers.
Yeah, it may have been that. I never really went into that, but that could be it. That's right.
So perhaps, so did you have a better relationship with your dad than your mom?
It's weird. My dad was there. He obviously worked all the time. He's going to be there in the mornings for a bit when I get ready, and then he would do like fun stuff with me on the weekends. Take me to go here to go. Let's say every Sunday we went to walk to McDonald's. We got a breakfast and we go over to the park and play baseball, and then we go home. But my mom was there obviously day to day. You got to do this. You got to do that. As a kid, you're like, oh, dad's fun and dad does cool things with me. Dad's great type of thing. So I guess in a way, yeah, you gravitate towards that.
So you automatically gravitated towards becoming like your dad.
Right. Yeah.
And then, of course, him being this familiarity with the numbers was one of his characteristics.
It was one of his characteristics, although he didn't expose and tip his hand to it. And he even surprised me that I like that. I'm thinking behind the scenes, that was really his thing as well, as he did like the numbers.
Did you ever have a discussion with him?
I think the one discussion I had when my dad took me to college, he dropped me off and he's okay, what's your major going to be? I said, I'm doing accounting. And he's just shaking his head. There's so many different potentials, so many things you can do, and you're going to do accounting. And he said to me, he said, it's a behind the scenes job and you don't get to interact with people. I said, Dad, you couldn't be more wrong. I said, tax accountants spend their entire day talking to clients about the numbers and what taxes they're going to owe. We have conversation about their expenses. I said, you couldn't be more opposite with tax accountants. They speak to people, and the people who are speaking to them want to speak to me because they want to learn more about it. If I was a telemarketer or something talking to people don't want to talk to me. I get that. But as a tax person, hey, I want to talk to me. Tell me about your taxes. Auditors, yeah, granted, they got a different reputation, I think, for not wanting to be spoken to. But tax people, I think people do want to speak to me. At least I hope they do.
Yeah.
I feel they do.
So how did your dad respond to that?
He's okay. I see that. And he shook his head a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. And I had to convince him a bit. I used my marketing tools to convince him. And he was on board with it then.
Yeah. So would you say he was easy to talk to in terms of his approach to people, or was he behind the scenes kind of guy?
He was easy to talk to. He'd always want to do like family meetings, make sure we're all on the same page. He liked to make sure we're a cohesive unit. So he was easy to talk to when he was around. Obviously, he's running the business. It was hard.
So your interest in being numbers sounds to me like it was all based on you looking up to him and wanting to be like him, right?
Absolutely. I used to joke, my dad would introduce me to a new salesperson or a new manager and said, oh, this is my son. And they'd always say, what do you want to do, when you grow up? I said, I'm going to fire my dad and take over the business one day. I'd say that since I was 12, and everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? My dad's, oh, please stop that joke. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fire you and take over the business one day. That's my joke.
So obviously he's seen you start your practice and everything else, right?
He has. Yeah.
Is he still around?
He is. He is.
Did you ever tell him about your interest in numbers was all because you looked up to him, wanted to be like him?
I really haven't actually. No, that's a really good idea. I've not done that with him. No,
So do you plan to tell him?
I think I might actually. Maybe I'll give him a call after this.
And what do you think he would say?
I think he'd be surprised. And if I told him the way I told you, he'd see that to go, yeah, you know what? I did the numbers more than I realized, because he was such a business owner that he probably didn't think I'm a numbers guy, but he really was. He probably didn't even realize he was such a numbers guy.
Yeah, it's very interesting how we are made, right? Everything is all in the first 5-6 years. Right. And from that point on, it just simply goes in that direction.
It does. You're right. Those are years, development years.
So Craig, tell us a little bit about your company, your firm, and share the contact information, how people can reach you.
Yeah, Crestville Accounting has been around. We've been around now for going on over 15 years. We specialize in bookkeeping services to small and I'd say mid-sized small companies, even startups for sure. Like we said before, we don't want people to be in year 3 and find out they need us when you need to start on day 1. So we do bookkeeping services. We do tax services, tax planning. We have a team that is ready to help you. We have an office manager, our bookkeeping team, tax team. We can all assist you in all the different various aspects of accounting and tax. We're virtual firms, so we use Teams, we use Zoom, phone if needed, but all the communication is clear. And let me be clear about that. Our office manager does the communication, so she's very good about that. And that's why I hired her. Peggy's awesome. But our office manager takes care of the communication, but we can be reached via email. And my email address is Craig@Crestville Accounting. It's 2 L's and an E, CRESTVILLE Accounting and .com. And our website is also the same, www.Crestville And our number, we have an office number we can use at 407-232-6366. And you can do extension 2 to get a hold of me or extension 1 to get a hold of Peggy. And we can help you out with all your accounting, bookkeeping, and tax needs.
Great. I'm sure you'll hear from some people who tune in because this is a big need, especially with all the changes. That's another thing, right? They keep changing the laws and you don't know where you stand. So it's really great. Thank you, Craig. Thank you for the opportunity to ask the questions and to learn a little bit about, but most important, about where you're coming from with the numbers. And check out that show. It's a great show.
Nick, thank you so much. It was great talking with you today. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Behind Closed Books podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.